we have who have we got? We've got Todd, so he's going to wave around his hands here, and Todd can speak for himself, and he definitely can. So I'm not going to say another word about him. We've got Bianca, who is also has been doubling as a in-house advisor and wise woman of the day. We've got Peter, who's been doubling as providing advice on man flu and other illnesses that are particular, and heckling. It's been his special subject. Brett, welcome. Brett's been an undercover agent for the Australian Dental Foundation today, so he's checking on what we've been eating and drinking and all of that, dental hygiene. And we have the effervescent Sarah Gunn, who we also were introduced, some of you, to her and her work earlier in the day in this room, and you've had a chance to hopefully run into, in the nicest possible way, all of the people that she's brought with her today as part of GOGO. And I think I'm handing the microphone over to Brett. There's fake news. We don't need deep fake AI because we've got fake news happening all the time up the front here. But I'm going to hand over... Oh, Brett's got to try to... If I give you this microphone, do you promise not to turn it on? Can you make them welcome, please?
Hi. I'm not a dentist, sadly, but my brother and I founded the Australian Dental Foundation. My name's Brett Miller, co-founder of the Australian Dental Foundation and sit on the board. I'm like a cheap doppelganger, so he was too busy seeing patients, sadly, so you've got me. And he's got a better sense of humour, so I didn't... The acoustics aren't quite good in here, I can't hear any laughs. So I'll try a better joke. So I requested this presentation to be scheduled at 2:30, which is a dentist's favourite time. Okay, that's better. Thank you for turning it up. Appreciate that. So I'm bringing the funny this afternoon. So what I wanted to do is first acknowledge everyone in the room. I think it's a fantastic topic, such a fantastic conference, very poignant and pertinent, and also my co-speakers. I wanted to share with you some of our journey. So our journey starts when I was a kid. We used to get our teeth fixed at the local school dental van, and I had some great times getting my teeth pulled. Every now and then my mum would freak out, so she'd have to go out and take a moment. I used to love the sound of the tooth cracking. But that was just my shtick. Fast forward over time, I guess things change, funding cycles change, and as I was doing other things in my life, my brother became a dentist and was doing a lot of high-end work and all of that sort of stuff, but recognised that there was a need because my grandmother, who was at an aged care facility nursing home, wasn't getting her teeth brushed. She always had very clean nails, very good teeth, and her teeth started falling out when she was in her 90s. So Greg would go to the aged care facility and he would start brushing her teeth and fixing that. And then he bought some instruments and he got a second-hand compressor and stuff like that because he bootstrapped that sort of stuff. And then over time, he was going to the York Peninsula on a Sunday. And over time, what he then did is he got requests from other residents, families, saying, well, this is not a good situation. Medicare in dentistry doesn't really exist currently when it comes to people that aren't on family tax benefit A, and for children in those families who are up to 17 years old. So as an adult, let alone in a nursing home, it's tricky, and who the hell wants to go to a nursing home to deal with the teeth of someone that's old and demented? It's inglorious, and you can make a very nice living in a very nice suburb. So when Greg talked to me about that story, I was quite inspired. I spent years working in land care, working in community natural resource management, got into the business consulting game and was working with Greg outside of hours to grow the corporate group. So I thought, this is important. And not only is it in aged care that no one was really doing much, but we saw a need in the school dental system because the old school dental vans or the old buildings were made of asbestos, or the old caravans were clapped out, and so they were centralising services. And so for most families that relied on that and struggled to have the time or be able to have the time, what ended up happening is that they started to get missed out. So soon with aged care, Greg came up with the idea to visit schools. It's great when someone is enthusiastic. How do you scale that change? So for me, I worked as a consultant, billing by the hour, 6-minute increments, managing IR consultants and that sort of stuff, managing the commercial unit at Business SA. Nights and weekends, I was scheduling work for Greg in aged care and whatever else on a Sunday. We recognised that we needed to grow the system and we needed to de-risk that, and that's what we started doing. So I don't think I've got a clicker as such, but if we can just fast track a couple of the slides. The journey that we've been through is 11 years in the making. Whoop, that's the wrong presentation.
No, we don't want that one.
I can talk about AI, but you know. So as we get the presentation sorted, that's the one with the teeth in it. What we recognised is, well, how do we scale it up? And so you go through some core areas of focus. Peter will talk about them in terms of your target market, what that means, your financial modelling, you know, all of the things that need precision. And you then look at empathy and how you're going to fund it to have those big impacts. And so for us, one of the things was we needed dental equipment, right? There we go. Yep, that's it. Okay, so if we can go to the next, well, that's inspiring. So the next slide, I can see my bald head. Next one, please. Thank you. So we recognise that we need to scale. So scaling is expensive. Who here's been to a party? Okay, who has been to a wedding? What's the difference between a party and a wedding? Scales? It's the same bloody thing. It's just the weddings cost heaps more. So think like normal staff and healthcare. Okay, so when it comes to healthcare, for us, if we want to set up some portable equipment in a room, portable X-ray, digital X-ray sensor, some treatment equipment, it's about 120 grand. Okay, portable dental chair is like if a deck chair and a massage chair had a nice weekend, and then 9 months later, that's what popped out. They retail at about 3.5 to 4K, right? Fiscally, it doesn't make any sense, okay? Can't use it. And you know what? For any of you in the room, if you can work out in a fixed dental clinic, how to utilise that clinic not doing dentistry, you're going to make a huge amount of money, right?
For weddings.
You can do weddings. Podiatry doesn't work. We've tried it, okay? So the upshot is, well, how do we do that? So we need to invest. So if it's us doing that, as a family, we take our family money, and that's what we did. So fast forward, we've then grown. We've invested in equipment. There's some really cool photos. We got charitable status. We've become a registered social enterprise. We're in 4 states as well. You know, we love the corny jokes, you know, trying to do things 1 tooth at a time. It's a sense of community. So for us, what's really important? So there's execution risk. So you can get the best equipment, but if your people aren't good, you're going to do a hack job. If you've had a hack job as a young person or as an adult, that's no good. So if you do dentistry, you do healthcare, you've got to do it well. Because if you do it poorly, 1, people won't come back. 2, medico-legally, it is a huge problem. So you got to de-risk that by getting expensive equipment. Okay, not just good equipment, expensive equipment. So digital X-ray sensors, 12 grand. You know, top of the line equipment, so that good clinicians will do good work. So that's part of it. Get good people. You scale with good people. Second one is enable change. Be the change that you want. Lead it. Don't be afraid about being emotional. I'm a crier, so you've probably picked up on that. And I find it very hard, genuinely, I find it really hard to talk about this story without getting a bit teary, so you have to forgive me, all right? Look at how you need to adapt, okay? So you need to be hard on the metrics, okay? You need to know what success is. Money isn't success, it's impact. you can't have impact without having, well, it's very hard to have impact, real impact, without having money. You can spend a lot of money and not change too much of your impact. Okay? So thinking about that. And our lessons and how we've scaled is we've now got 20 mobile dental teams. We see 30,000 patients a year. We're going to see our 100,000th patient. We're at about 18 million revenue. Services all told. Large charity. We're accredited, creating solutions for state governments and whatever else. It's a really cool space. So if we can get to the next slide. There's some lessons that we've learned in the process, right? So our bread and butter game, yes, that's the brother dentist. Yes, he's better looking because he has more hair, but he's fatter. I can guarantee you that. Okay, and his cracks, his wisecracks are not as good as mine. But yes, so with this, one of the things that we wanted to look at is scale and impact. So we are providing services. Okay, we're across states. And one of the things that we wanted to think about is how we can do things differently. We aspired towards someone like Cancer Council with their retail products. Easy, right? No, it's really hard. Okay, there is a certain set of requirements that you need to conform to in healthcare, because AHPRA, the dental regulator, is very prescriptive for a very good reason. Okay, you need to communicate in a truthful way, and there's controls put in place for that. When it comes to retail, if you try and relate that to retail, it doesn't work. So you need to do things differently. Okay, and set yourself big goals, but recognise it is hard. So you need good people around you. Next slide, please.
Oh, that's my job.
Thank you, the clicker. And I should have said, the first toothpaste we ever sold was in Woolworths. So we got a deal for selling into 20 Woolworths, so that was pretty cool. So the proceeds, if we look at a $2.20 toothbrush in Woolworths, $1.50 of that goes directly into delivering programs. Yeah. So toothpaste is in and around, depending on what it is, but around about $3. Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify?
Sure.
What was the revenue model?
Revenue model. Okay, so here's a good slide, okay? So the revenue model, there's two things. One is we do cost recovery dentistry within an aged care setting, okay? So within cost recovery, it's like going to a fixed normal dentist, except we bring the equipment and the dentist and the DA to the sites. So we just cover the cost of travel and the equipment getting there. And so it's like going into a gentrified neighbourhood and getting top quality dentistry. It's just that you've got residents in a room, okay? Individual pays, agencies won't pay, okay? So secondarily, our family have put in a reasonable whack of money, and we look at donations, so that's another way to go. And that's been substantive without going into that, okay? Third one is there's a thing called the Child Dental Benefit Schedule. There's $1,000 worth of free dental over a 2-year period that you can get if you're on Family Tax A for kids 2 to 17. So that's a particular cohort of society. So we focus in on providing care to all schools for no out-of-pocket expense. And so regardless of whether they can access that or not, we provide a service. So we try and get a mix right. Maybe 3 out of every 4 kids, we can recover some money. But if it's Bill Gates's kid, if you've come from America and you don't have Medicare, or you've used that up, we do it for free. Every kid gets seen. And we also provide solutions. So we're into elegant solutions. So in terms of doing what you do, be passionate, that's great. But if you're not into elegant solutions and you can't become a solutions provider, how are you different from the rest? Okay? So my job is I chase shiny things in the business, okay? I come up with elegant solutions, and I'm the truffle pig. So the last one is, what's a truffle pig? Well, it's someone that goes out and gets value. So I'm the grant hunter, okay? And part of my background is about going out and finding solutions and finding grants to do that. So with the Dental Foundation, we provide a emergency teledental service, triage service for the whole of country South Australia, and we're funded to do that as an example, okay, because no one else is doing it. So that's what we saw as a need. So they're examples of that. and hopefully toothbrush will be a revenue model. I'll try and talk quickly about this. Revenue is really important because then it enables you to play around and do different things. Toothpaste, toothbrushes, testing, lots of lessons. Used to have hair. It's fallen out, sad days. But we've got good results there, starting to. Another aspect is COVID. So if you imagine your business model is visiting aged care, visiting schools, we just expanded into Victoria. Who here wants to guess when we went into Victoria?
March 2020.
Wrong. It was December 2019. Okay? And I'm really proud to say that there's a lot of great people in Victoria. A lot of our DAs and dentists are overseas, trained and qualified, and some of them have got registrations as dentists, some don't. The upshot there is that with the COVID grants, the foundation didn't get money. If you can't visit schools, can't visit aged care, and that's your revenue model, what the hell do you do? So do you dump staff or not? So we found a way to manage that and keep the team together. We actually grew, and so in Victoria now, that's been a really great thing, and it's created a great solution. Out of COVID though, what then happened is from an infection control perspective, if you can imagine, setting up equipment in a schoolroom and then having competitors that are private, not a charity, going in with a dental van or a dental truck and saying, oh, that's unsafe, you're going to give people COVID and you're going to be liable, that changed the game. So then we had to adapt. So if you look at the caravans, or what we affectionately call Clary, named after my grandfather, top left hand, guess how much it costs to build a single chair dental caravan? Have a guess.
600.
600,000. Yeah, it's about 600,000. Okay, that one there retails at about 550. Yeah, and then with the wrapping and stuff like that, it's a bit more. Yeah, so parties and weddings. The one on the right-hand side is really cool. So it's dual surgery, got a waiting room, stereo in the middle, set up to best practice standards, digitised, whatever else. That's over $1 million. Okay, the wrapping, the stickers on the outside were 30 grand. Okay, so you got to pay for it somehow, right? So again, elegant solutions. How do you do that? And again, you know, in the bottom left-hand side, it's not as schmick as the other two. That's something that we're looking at, we've refurbished, and that there's pathways forwards. Still providing that best outcome because it's healthcare. Okay, so we're accredited, best in breed, using very expensive handpieces and whatever else. That's the gig, right? It's expensive, it takes courage and is challenging, but then it creates impact, and it's sustainable impact. So think about what it means. Think about the model, and if you want to change the model, go into a different area or do different things, or another competitor's coming in and it forces you to change, be wary of what that actually means. Because if you don't get that right, for us, the investment there is $2 million, right? Yeah. Last one is, and then I'll shut up.
Last one.
Yeah. Is what's really cool is that we can do other stuff like that. So that's Greg. That's the orangutan. So we do the dentistry for Zoos SA, so that's cool. So in terms of seeing some of our patients, that's some of it. And if you go to the next slide as well, that's something else that we do day to day. So yeah, I thought I'd leave you with some pictures of a light cure, some root canals, and brush your bloody teeth, people.
This dentist went into a bar. No, I can't share that. My name's Todd Stokes. My story's only in its infancy. Essentially, I was working in an organisation, Aboriginal organisation, for about 10 years, actually about 12 years. I developed programs for men, primarily that perpetrated violence against their partner, and also delivered the training, but also went out and worked in the sector to change systems in those sectors around working with First Nations people. And I decided at some point that I was going one way and the organisation was going another way. So predominantly, as I said, my clients were all men, and most of them had interactions with Department of Child Protection. And so where the organisation went is they were sort of getting more involved with DCP you can see that's problematic if I'm trying to deliver a social service or a service, counselling service for men in terms of confidentiality and all those types of things in terms of the reporting. So I went into my business. It's called Legacy Counselling and Consultancy. The first year was a struggle. I had never run a business before in my life. My price point was extremely low. It was $20 above what I was getting paid on a wage. And at one point I went, I need to do something. I need to go back into that sector because I was doing all this work, a lot of work. You know, we all know that. And then I met this person at a meeting. It was at a gathering, black coffee. And I remember, and I'll share the story. I walked in and there's this table. There's a big reserve sign there, and I thought, yep, this is us, black coffee, reserved. And I sat there, and you can see the colour of my skin. It takes all types, right? First Nations. And I'm sitting there, and Bianca and a friend of ours, Dee, rocks up, and they're both, I hear this little whisper behind me, and I'm looking around thinking, what's going on here? And Dee comes up, she's a graphic artist, and she's very forward. She goes, excuse me, what are you doing here? And I went, I'm here for black coffee. And she looks at me, and I went, yeah, I'm here for black coffee. And then they're like, oh, okay, they're here for black coffee. But that's how Bianca and I first met. And I tell that story because from that moment, the collaboration begun. And my business went from earning very little to exorbitant amount of money. It's not about money. For us, it's about the connection. But along with working with the right people, like what you were saying before, having those people around you that you can upskill with Bianca, but also collaborate with, really helps in terms of the bottom line. We trust each other, and I think that's the key for us. We've gone from me working singularly with clients, which is very hard, very difficult to get a $2,000 wage if you're seeing one client at $56 an hour. It's a lot of clients in a week, right? To now basically, you know, it's much easier. We've restructured our business. The other thing that I found that I needed to do was pivot at points. So what was working wasn't working at some point, so I needed to pivot and move into different spaces. Moved into the consultancy space, which I was already doing. But part of what kept me back was fear. So the fear of doing this. We have something called, you know, it's what's that word? It's imposter syndrome, where we actually believe that we're not good enough to do it. Now, here I'd been doing this work for 10 years. I'd won accolades and awards from the Premier, and yet when I step out by myself, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm no good at this. I have no clinical base, which I absolutely do. But that fear grounded me, and that fear kept me where I was, which is interesting. And so we've talked about a whole bunch of things today, but one of the things that I absolutely wanted to talk about was that fear. And it's safe when you're in an organisation, you're getting paid, but it's much harder when you step out and you've got to, you know, do invoices at 9 o'clock at night because you've just come from Elizabeth and you live down at Aldinga, and you've got to do those invoices because otherwise you don't get paid. And that fear can really overwhelm you and your family. But I was lucky to have those people around me that kicked me up the arse and said, you are good enough and you can do it, and supported me to do that, which is what you were saying before, having those people around you. So it's really important to find those people that are going to do that and support you. And I think the other thing is not listening to those people that say you can't do it and you shouldn't do it. What I do is specific to what I do. I work with men on country. I don't have an office. So imagine this, I work with men that are perceived violent, and we go for a walk in the bush. What could possibly go wrong? Well, nothing. Because part of being on that country, as I know as an Indigenous healing practitioner, is when we're on country, we're regulating. We don't know it, but our brain is looking at all the leaves and the trees and the animals and everything scurrying through the bush, and we're going, I'm calm. So it's really easy from that perspective to then begin to counsel and support men to move through whatever they're going through. Really hard to do it in a building that's just got white walls and no windows. And you talk about the trauma just bounces off those white walls, and you come out sometimes when you're counselling and you're like, oh my God, this is so difficult and so traumatic. You can only imagine what's actually going on for the participant as well. So that's what I do. I go on country, I walk on country, and men and I yarn about what's going on for them, and we give them solutions. So I don't think there's anybody in the state that does that with the cohort that I do it with. And as I said, I was very lucky enough to collaborate with Bianca, and we do some amazing things. We've got a couple of amazing things. We've just launched together collaboratively. We've just launched a national EAP for First Nations mob. So the only one in the country, I believe. And I remember having the first session with an incredible woman in Western Australia, and we were just yarning up, just talking. And she's telling me about all this stuff, and one of the things I said to her, you know what, you just got to shout at the wind. And she went, oh, shout at the wind. I absolutely know what that means. She goes, it's so nice to be in a space where I understand what you mean when you say shout at the wind, culturally. Yep, I didn't have to explain it to her, and she didn't have to, kind of explain anything to me because we were connected. Yep, so that's the other thing that we kind of do, which is really important. A lot of these services or EAPs that we find are very detached. The other thing with our EAP, which is again, it's a different model, is all of them or most of the money, apart from a very small percentage, which is admin, goes to the person that's actually delivering the service. And we contract workers from around Australia to do that, First Nation businesses. So that's the important part. These people are clinicians, and again, they might be in the same boat that I was, where I was scared to kind of step out of my own shadow. But this gives them an opportunity to step out, just briefly step out. Maybe they want to do 3 or 4 sessions a week. So it gives them the opportunity to do that and start to build their business. And in the meantime, we're supporting them to do that. So that's kind of all of me. All of me.
Hello, hello. Hello. I know you can hear me? Yeah. So I'm Bianca Stawiarski, and I retired from the Commonwealth Government after over 2 decades in being institutionalised, and retired at 42, and I thought, oh, how fabulous. What am I going to do with all my time? And of course, as most people who do know me realise, that there was no way I was not going to be doing nothing. And I started a social enterprise under a different name. And then in 2018, I created Warrida Holistic Wellness, and Warrida means wedge-tailed eagle in Budimai. And I did that because I wanted to see how well-being looks from up above, how everything interconnects rather than just this silo of what well-being is. And so I actually never had an issue with charging my worth, which is why a lot of people come and see me. And I went through Social Traders, I became a certified social enterprise. Even though I knew I was already operating a social enterprise, I actually wanted to make sure I went through the process so I understood that I'd actually ticked those boxes. That's my Commonwealth Government mentality, institutionalisation. Anyway, so I was about decolonising mental health and wellbeing. So looking at relationship and healing and connection. And yes, I've got the clinical qualifications. Currently doing a PhD in my spare time because that's just what you do. And anyway, so I started Warrida, and I was amazed at the reception from community, because I always wanted to have something that had a way of giving back to community. So I charged corporates lots of money so that I can then give those services free of charge to community. And I also never wanted to have an organisation with lots of staff. That actually wasn't what I was about. I was actually about empowering and encouraging other sovereign First Nations businesses to actually come up and step up in their own businesses, and I would contract them in to Warrada to help deliver services when they were there. So what it was actually increasing economic empowerment amongst the community, because we know, they said that this morning, Matt said this morning in the black cladding session, we know that First Nations businesses employ First Nations people, without a doubt. And then you add female First Nations businesses employ women, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. And so that's where I started. And then COVID gave me a really awesome opportunity. I know that sounds weird, but COVID enabled people to think that they actually didn't need to be in the same location as their therapist. So then I started having phone calls from the UK, from Ireland, all over the place, from Brazil, some from the US. I need a therapist. I need to access someone, and it needs to be someone that isn't going to diagnose me. So like Todd, who works with men, I generally work with women, and most of the time women who have been bred for abuse. And so that's the ones that people don't want to talk about. And then I go to the next step is actually then help support businesses. So I've worked with, black cafe owners in the US and businesses all over the world, and it's so awesome to actually have that opportunity. Then what we realise is, because Todd and I collaborate a lot, same thing, he talked about values. It's all about values, about the way we give back to community, and how reciprocity, or ngalami yugaja, is foundational in our business processes. What we haven't talked about is First Nations businesses are inherently social enterprises. We were the first social enterprise. And so you're just catching on with what we've actually always done. So we realised that quite often organisations, corporates, government departments really struggle. They want to be able to fund one person. And we realised also that we were actually missing a big bucket of money, philanthropy money. And so we created BilaEmpower, and Bila means sky in Buddy Maya. And what we decided was we would stay very, very small, but we would, as Todd was saying, we would contract in First Nations sovereign businesses around Australia to actually deliver the services. We would set the fees, and the majority of the fee would go to First Nations sovereign businesses. And we would only bring in new people as we had the work, because there's nothing worse than having all this celebration about amazing businesses and then having no work to give these people. Yeah. And then we made amazing collaborations with Torrens, who have been their students, their MBA students, and Torrens University have been incredible in supporting Bila to get up and running. And so we wanted to incorporate lots of different things, and we've just got DGR status, which is amazing. But things like research. In our communities, research is a dirty word. And so what we wanted to do was bring First Nations people in their local communities doing research. So that's the other sort of forward-thinking thing that we're looking at. But yeah, we're going, yep. So watch this space. As Todd said, the first national Indigenous-led EAP for everybody. So if you're a university, if you're a corporation, if you're a health service, if you're just an employment agency or anything, you all need EAP. What better to employ individual sovereign businesses to do that?
Because we do it differently.
100%.
Just do it differently. That's the other thing that we're talking about, Matt. One of the things that we do is do it differently. It's not the same, right? And once you've done it one way, you actually understand. Once you've done it one way, the black way, you understand what that means. It's more an intuitive kind of discussion, especially therapy. It's more of a yarn. It's a conversation. And that person feels validated and listened to, which is really important when we're dealing with some of the stuff that we deal with.
There she is.
That on? It's on. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah, and next year, GOGO Events is 25 years old. Wow. So we've been around for a really long time, and I'll just share a little bit of that journey with you in that I started GOGO Events because I wanted to earn more than the $20,000 that I'd earned the year before, that working for someone else, and I thought I'll just have a crack at this. So that was in 2000. By 2012, I'd had enough of that because the requirements of a good event manager and a good event management company is that you leave no trace behind. You run a fabulous day, everyone comes together, the event managers go home feeling with their ego slightly inflated by what happens naturally when you bring people together anyway, and you leave no trace behind, not a toothpick on the floor, not an olive pip in a garden, nothing. And I felt that I had become quite diminished in the process of being a really exceptionally good event manager. And I took some time out. Someone this morning talked about, at the very beginning, talked about slowing down and breathing and being conscious. And I also received some advice from someone to sit with what I could be. I was thinking about my own legacy at that point in time. And I then, through a series of different processes, decided that I was going to employ women directly from homeless shelters in South Australia into my business as my employees. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I have a brother who has schizophrenia, had periods of homelessness and still has a very serious drug addiction and mental ill health. So I had noticed that society didn't have the capabilities to support him away from that. There was no mechanism to catch people and give them the opportunity to bounce back up again. So I made this decision that that's what I would do. And then because I'd worked in my business for 12 years, I had some really strong clients that one of whom said, we will go on that journey with you. So that was great. And then I went into a complete meltdown. I thought, now I've really actually got to do this. And then I approached Hutt Street Centre, Catherine House, and others. And so here is my first lesson for you, is that the pushback from those organisations I had not anticipated. So I went with what I thought was a great opportunity to create life-changing moments for people to re-identify as something other than, a difficult person in society that has problems, to identify as something, what are their superpowers, what are their capabilities. And the pushback there was really interesting, and we were talking about it earlier. What I didn't understand was there were systems. I was pushing back against what I couldn't see, which was systems where I still don't really know, but what I suspect was that I was presenting a new opportunity. It was disruptive to say, well, these people are worthy of something. They wanted to be kept into a charitable system that just gave food and shoes that fit, and we're saying actually you could be more than that. You could. Anyway, that was interesting. That's a whole nother conversation. But what I then did, I realised at that time that I needed more than just to make a decision. I needed to put some really strong mechanisms in place. So we developed I developed a social and environmental sustainability policy that is still as good today as it was then, which is about, we will not be complicit in child slavery. We will not be complicit in ridiculously long traffic miles bringing things into events. We will not, everything we buy will be regenerative, will be locally sourced from other social enterprises. We have subsequently, over time, have a First Nations first strategy for procurement, as is demonstrated with providers today, along with other supporting clients such as SASEC. And so since we've been a social enterprise since 2012, along that journey there were a couple of things we needed. We needed paying clients, and everyone knows here, we've talked about this before, you needed an income stream. Our clients were our income stream. But when I first went, when I went to our second client and I said, unlike you, I had to learn this. I'd been not charging enough because, in fact, my well-being had diminished through a process of not feeling good about what I was doing. So once I'd connected back into this purpose, I thought, actually, I'm going to go to, it was Toyota Australia. We'd been doing their events for 10 years. And I said, look, you can do it this way or you can do it this new way, which is where you're going to have a social purpose. At that point in time, let me tell you, environmental sustainability was recycling your photocopier paper. That was it. And I'm saying, you're going to have social dollars in the bank, runs on the board. And they're like, yeah, that's nice, but really, can you just do the event? So what I said was, I'm going to charge you 3 times what I charged you last year, which was still almost enough, not quite. So you need client, you need paying clients. You also, I think, I didn't know the word social enterprise in 2012, and I was reading another social enterprise magazine. I didn't know what it was. It was just a Dumbo feather. It had really good graphics on the front, and I bought it because it had nice paper. And it had an article about social enterprise, which then led me to this community. Here we are, 12 years later, because actually you need a community and you need collaborators and you need people to buy your product that believe in what you're doing. And I think in South Australia we have demonstrated that really beautifully. We're at the tipping point now where, because of a collective mindset, we now have there must be a word, but I feel like we've climbed the hill now and we're all ready to fly. And my personal reflection on that is as recent as yesterday, which at our board meeting last night, our board approved for our GOGO events first, fully paid with all the bells and whistles, the proper super, maternity leave, everything. We're employing our first full-time operations and event manager in our business after 25 years. So this is, and the reason that, and I said this to the board last night, it's because the conditions are ripe. It's because social procurement is now a thing. It's because ESG is now a thing. Back when we were talking about this 12 years ago, like literally, I used to say to Moira, the blinds have gone down. I'd be talking to someone and about, I got really good at changing the subject from funding, like the conversation we had this morning, to football. Because I would literally, the shutters would come down and I'd think, I'll just talk about the Crows, because that was, that was as far as we could get. But, and in the business, we've gone from GOGO events to no-go events during COVID. But we then had a bit of a side hustle. It was called the Period Revolution. So we ran a period summit, Australia's first period summit. As you do as an entrepreneur, you just can flip. We had slow-go events. I've nearly shut the business down. I can't tell you how many times, but we endure. And then I suppose really the more interesting story is that in 2017, I was awarded a Westpac Social Change Fellowship for this work, and no one was more surprised than me, because I had to get out of my Ugg boots and under the kitchen table and go. And I remember being at Barangaroo on the whatever floor of Westpac, and they're saying, we've chosen 10 people from around Australia and we believe in their vision. And I was like, seriously, it was like having a bucket of cold water poured on my head, because I thought, I'm in the wrong room. But what has happened as a result of that is I was encouraged to set up the GOGO Foundation, and within the GOGO Foundation, we now run the Inclusive Work Program. So the reverse of what happens mostly now, we took what we had learnt at GOGO events, and we turned it into what is now a 9-week program. So what can safe, sustainable employment look like for women who are marginalised from the workforce? And these are the women that have been falling through the cracks, those who have experienced family and domestic violence, childhood sexual abuse, trauma, multi-generational disadvantage, poverty, coercive control. They're our women, and we start with empathy, trust, kindness, and building to your strength to find safe, sustainable employment in the open market. Now, GOGO events can be a bouncing. Come out of the inclusive work program, come into GOGO events while other things are being sorted in life, and then into open employment, meaning into other people's businesses. So that is exciting, and only actually yesterday too. Yesterday must have been a big day, like the stars must have been lining up, because last November we had no money in the GOGO Foundation. We got some federal funding from the Office for Women to try to test our model, and then we ran out of money. Stranger didn't see that coming, but we just ran out of money. I'm like, oh my God, we haven't got any money. And yesterday, I can say we've received $600,000 from the federal government through the Safe and Resilient. Yeah, so that's good. That's really good. That's to bring 50 women through our program. The state government are sponsoring another 10 people through the program, but that's for 1 year. So the next thing I want to just share with you is about what next. So what is next for me is I've got 12 months to work out what is our long-term financial sustainability policy. What strategy? What does that look like? To use some terms that we know, capital stacking. So we probably will always be eligible for some form of grant funding. We think we have a really good HR procurement for large organisations that say we need a workforce. We know we're in low unemployment, right? Well, we think that the 4% of the population that's unemployed, probably 2% of those people are totally employable, have incredible strengths, and we're finding them. So we want to find those companies that say, we want to work with you to build the strength and employ those women. So it's this really solid social procurement strategy for large businesses. We're only in Adelaide. What would regional expansion look like? And your model of regional international expansion is one really solid and strong vehicle about how to do that. And of course, then what we're also doing is employing graduates of our program back into the program. That is a work integrated social enterprise. GOGO Events is also a B Corp. We couldn't tick more boxes. Like over the years, we have. I think it comes from actually a position of thinking we're not enough. So in order you tick all the boxes because you think, oh well, if I've got that credibility, I've got that credibility. And the last thing I want to share with you, if I'm not running out of time, is that social enterprise is sophisticated business. You know, I felt for so long I didn't understand, or I wasn't smart enough, or I didn't understand the business modelling. And I remember sitting in these VC rooms, listening to venture capitalists and going, why don't I understand this? It is not understandable because it doesn't align with not even one atom in my body. Yeah. And so my learning there was not to bother with that anymore. It's like, what could you reimagine in funding? And let me tell you, very shortly in August, at the end of July, we have a impact investor that is giving us, has approached me based on trust, saying, what about if we gave you a no-interest loan that you pay back over the next 3 years, but you don't start paying it back until month 7 because it'll take you a few months to work out what you're going to do. And in addition to that, I'm going to give you another loan, and we'll get you to pay that back at 3.5% interest, which is basically CPI over 3 years, same terms, but actually. But also, if your cash flow doesn't meet those payments, then just pay back when you've got the cash flow. And I said, well, if we're going to do that, would you be interested in trading that interest for really good social impact if in that month we created something really special for someone or a group of people, or we ran an event that was really, really something and had really good social impact? How about you trade off the interest in that month? And she's like, fabulous, let's do that. So that's about to happen. So I think that my key message is align with what is authentic to you and believe that you can do it, and have the tenacity to stick. Just to keep saying, you know, my mantra is I just keep walking, saying the path I'm on is the right one, and just hoping that that actually comes true.
Must be on, yep. Amazing stories, aren't they? They're all quite different stories. You may have been, you may have thought that maybe with Brett starting, the session was going to be about dental hygiene, but the focus has been about how you can kind of build and scale your enterprise. Scaling and growth for growth's sake is not necessarily a good thing. And a bit like what you're saying, you know, you can create a whole lot of interest from a whole lot of practitioners about being involved, but you need to have the pipeline of business because you're creating false hope. I think some of it is also about the ability to adapt your model and learn from what works and what doesn't, and what's happening in the marketplace. I think some of it is about understanding your business model and how that's going to contribute financially. You know, what's your product and service that will contribute to the underpinning your financial sustainability and enable you to keep to your DNA, which is about that social impact, you're going to say. So, you know, I was going to spend the next 45 minutes talking to you now, but the level of interest in that at what time is it? May have somewhat diminished. Bravery.
You haven't actually talked about what each of us have talked about is what each of us has talked about is being brave in our vision and our purpose, and not keeping to that, and not actually going away from that. Even when people say, "Oh, if you just do it this way, we'll give you money,"
that's wrong.
and instead we're going, no. You know, Sarah's gone, no, we're doing it this way. You've going, well, I know it's going to cost me $1 million to do that bus, but this is how we're going to do it. We've gone, no, we don't want to get big, but we want to have a lot of First Nation sovereign businesses involved. And so each way, what we've done is we have been unapologetic about the path that we walk. That's the bit that I think that's the bit that all social enterprises actually try and attempt to do, is that we are very clear about what it is we are and who we are and what we're about.
Thanks, Bianca. So the good thing at the Social Enterprise Hub, I work at Torrens University, is that we get to work with all these guys. And it's a real privilege to feel like we can support their amazing endeavours. And like for me, I've got more a commercial background, setting up a reasonably size scale consulting company across Singapore and Australia. I got bored with that. And in reality, I love the purpose-driven stuff and always have, really. But working with the commercial bankers and those people just kind of, it's a little bit of a different bent they recognise that I had. But I think what empowers me and what drives me is in feeling like in my role, and all you guys, is that you can actually make a difference. Yeah, and that's, I think often that's your superpower. Yeah, and not what you don't want to forget is about that difference that you can make in people's lives. Yeah. So we've got a roving mic. Could be Two questions. Okay, so just two comments or questions. So, any other thoughts on what contributes to kind of sustainable scale of an enterprise, but also maybe a question that you've got of the panel.
The question was, did Toyota come back? They did, and we did their events for many years until they decided to have a procurement strategy that was based in Melbourne, and we had to have $400,000 of insurance underwriting. So I didn't mention, I'm just 80% of the women that come through our program within 6 months are in safe, sustainable employment. And the other key thing is that GOGO Events is a for-profit business that has contributed and kept the foundation afloat. So that little tiny business has donated 50 grand to the foundation this year and kept it going. So I did transfer the one share I owned from GOGO Events into the foundation a couple of years back, because that felt the right thing to do at that time. So now it is entirely under a not-for-profit arrangement. But anyway, I just had a chance to drop that in. So there you go.
And one other thing is, I touched on Torrens University using their master's students, their MBA students, to work and support us through our various ventures. I don't think what Peter's realising is, one, we're getting skilled knowledge, because the people that are coming into that MBA level have lives, outside lives. But it's actually relationship, because I haven't actually told you this. So one of the guys that we were linked with through Torrens to help us set up Billa developed our financial modelling, who just so happens to be an investment banker in his life, in his day job. And even now that was a project that finished, when did it finish? Early this year, last year? I even messaged him literally 2 weeks ago because my son was interested in investment banking. And so he's organising to yarn to my son, who's 21, about investment banking. So what it is, it's about developing relationships. And they're always asking, how are you going? And, when we turned up to a funder and we said, this is our social return on investment for this project, for this venture, and suddenly they looked at us very differently. So utilising those things like, MBA students to do the grunt work, that gives them live examples about what being in social entrepreneur looks like, actually helps them and helps us.
Yeah, we'll shut off now. But just in closing, I suppose one of the key thoughts that I had in building your social enterprise venture is doing your research and building an evidence case for why what you're doing is important. And I think it's also about that commercial activity, the product or service that will create the income. It's understanding the business model and how that's meeting a market need. So you might have a great vision and the kind of social issue or challenge that you want to address, but when you start to create a pitch to others, you need to be able to explain how it works and have done your research and have the evidence base to substantiate why this is really important as a social issue, but how the numbers will stack up as well. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. A bunch of very talented people.
Indeed. So for Sarah, for Brett, Peter, Bianca, and what's his name? Todd. Come on, do more. Come on. Yeah.